My name is Pam Giganti. I was a news anchor, reporter here at WTVJ. I started in May of 2001 and left the station in December of 2015. So 14 and a half years. Ugh, so many great memories. Obviously, some of my most cherished memories are working with Bob Mayer, my co-anchor for 8 years. He was extraordinary. We just had so much fun. And when I came to WTVJ, I was very excited to be here. I had watched the station for many years, and I always looked up to the station for its quality and its journalism and the way it delivered the news every day. So I was really excited to get the opportunity to work here. And working with Bob, who was basically already a legend at that time, was such a treat for me and an honor because he was just so giving and wonderful and helped me to be a better anchor, a better reporter, a better writer. I really was able to hone some of those skills by working with Bob. And over that time, he taught me how to just be really comfortable in my own skin and with myself, and to really look at that camera, look through that camera to the audience as our friends, as our viewers, as kind of our morning family, if you will. So that just made the job that much easier. So I think one of the things I cherish the most is working with him. And I had other great TV husbands after him. So I had some really, really great partners. I'm very fortunate. Oh my gosh, Bob means everything, I think, to this station. Even beyond the time that he was here. He retired in 2010. I'll never forget that, June of 2010. And his service to this station is just legendary. It goes beyond words. I mean, he really is one of those sort of, I was going to say founding fathers, but he's one of those alumni who really helped to pave the way for this place being so well-renowned and recognized and looked at with such high esteem that people would tune in to WTVJ to get their news because they were getting it from somebody like Bob who was so trustworthy. With the viewer, it's so important. It's really, really important to connect. I think as an anchor, you have to really be real. You have to be organic. You can't fake it up there because people can see right through you. They know if you're just kind of dialing it in and reading a story or if you really care about what you're talking about. And I think for me, some of the most rewarding times were when I was outside of the station and I would have people come up to me and just say, "Oh, I watch you every morning," or "You're a part of our family, you're a part of our routine." And they would give me their whole routine. I get up at 5, my husband starts making the coffee at 5:30, we'll turn you on at this time and watch. And so that was really rewarding. I had a lady come up to me one time and she grabbed my hand in both of her hands and she said, "I feel like you're my girlfriend." And that was just so special because I knew exactly what she meant, that she felt we had a connection. So look, if people aren't watching, then I'm not doing my job well. I'm getting paid to connect with the audience. So if that's the kind of response I'm getting, then I'm doing my job well. So that made me really happy. Well, I started here in May of 2001. So for me, the first big story was 9/11 because it happened that September. So of course that was a monumental story and it carried on for so long. And it had that South Florida connection with the pilots who trained here. It had a lot of legs. So that stayed with us for a really long time. Obviously, that was a story we covered for a while. Gosh, I could be biased and say I think we do everything better than everybody else, or we did. I think, again, for us, it's the reporters. We have really great reporters. And when Nick Bogert was here, he covered political stories, I think, almost better than anybody. He just was a great storyteller. He was trustworthy. He had great contacts. You wanted to get the story from Nick. Willard Shepard, also another great reporter. Ari Odzer, Hank Tester, Ike Siemens. The list goes on. Kelly Craig. I mean, you have great storytellers. Patricia Andreu, an excellent investigative reporter. I mean, when we had that investigative team going, they were just winning Emmy after Emmy because of all the incredible stories that they did. So it's the people. The people are the ones who make the station great. I think it's the longevity. I mean, it was the first station in South Florida. So it goes back to those Ralph Rennick days. I mean, there are people in this community who still remember watching Ralph Rennick at night. There are people who still remember watching Bob Weaver deliver the weather. I was privileged enough to have the opportunity to work with Bob Weaver when I started. So I really feel so connected to kind of that special time when you had some of the folks who had been here at the very beginning. Bernie Rosen, not an on-camera person, but somebody behind the scenes who people know so well, longtime sports editor and producer here at the station. Working with folks like Tony Segreto. It resonates with the community because of the longevity here and the consistency of good reporting. Bob Weaver, he was so funny. He was funny on air. You saw him. He was like a clown. He was just the silly, weatherman. But he was, and Weeby the Weatherbird. I got to work with Weeby the Weatherbird, which honestly I kind of thought was a little kooky when I started. But I know it harkened back to TVJ days that this was sort of part of their tradition. So the bird had to stay. But, and one morning, I'll never forget, there's actually a picture that I still have on Facebook that Bob took of, I was out that morning, and so he put Weeby in my chair. And so he started saying, Pam's a little under the weather today, and then he started doing the voice of Weeby. Weeby took on a whole life of his own. Weeby was crazy, but that, that doesn't happen today. Nobody's ever gonna have a puppet or a bird or a monkey or anything like that anymore. That just doesn't happen. So that goes back to the old TV days. So, but Bob Weaver was a sweet, sweet man. Very giving, very kind. Things are changing very rapidly when it comes to the way folks get their news. As we all know, people get their news on so many different screens from so many different sources. I mean, one of the things I tell my students is that you have to find your news from multiple sources and make the right choices, because there is fake news out there. And there's also bias in a lot of the reporting. I mean, we have conservative news stations, you have left-leaning stations. I think you have stations definitely that are in the middle, but it's incumbent upon all of us. It's not just 3 networks anymore, and that's how you get your news. There's so many different sources. So I tell them that they have to be well-educated, and the burden is on them to make sure they're reading from a lot of different sources. But I also tell them, and there are folks who want to dissuade students from going into broadcast journalism, there's always going to be a need for it somewhere, somehow, some outlet. So if that's your passion and you are passionate about telling good stories and truthful stories, then that's the path you need to follow. Don't let anybody tell you shouldn't pursue it just because it's a dying industry or it's changing. That's okay. There's always going to be a place for that. So, and then those students have to know how to write well. You have to know how to express yourself well. We're sort of in that age of texting and emojis, allowing those to sort of express how we feel. Students really know how to write well, and they need to take the time to learn how to do that and express themselves well. Once they do that, they'll be fine. WTVJ has made a difference in the 70 years by being rooted in this community and covering the stories that are important. I always would say when I was on air, I never wanted to waste anybody's time. It's a privilege that you're tuning in and watching us. So we need to make sure that we give you the information that you need to know that's going to help keep you safe, keep your family safe, educate you, better your life. And I think that's what TVJ has been able to do. It gives people the information that they need in order to have the best life possible. I mean, one of the things I did here that I loved the most was when I worked with Ari and we did Brag About Your School. It's such a great segment, and it got such great response from everybody that we encountered, because the teachers are passionate about what they do, the kids are proud of their school, they're proud of their programs, and a lot of times people in this community walk through life and don't know what's going on in other sectors of their community. And that was one way that we could say, hey, look at all these great things that are going on in our schools. You should be proud of, because this is the future. These are our leaders of tomorrow. So I think TVJ has always done a really great job of hopefully hitting that mark in the community and bringing out the best of South Florida and the things people need to know.
Do you miss it?
Oh, I do. I don't miss getting up at 2:15 in the morning to be on the morning show, but I loved the morning crew. Being on the morning shift and working with that team was a very special time. We all bonded. It's a family. I miss the family part of it. I miss the people, because we spend so much time with each other. Imagine, we all saw people get married, have babies, people go through trials, go through illnesses, and get better. We were a family. We're a team. So I miss that the most. So proud to be a part of this legacy. Happy anniversary, WTVJ.